Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 2001 horror film 13 Ghosts. Now this is the second film that Dark Castle Entertainment produced. This is another remake of another William Castle film, which was titled the exact same as 13 Ghosts. And it was released in 2001. And it's one of those movies that I was somewhat familiar with because I saw bits and pieces of it on television. I remember liking what I saw, but it had been such a long time, I only really had a vague recollection of what I had seen. And I actually had not seen the film all the way until recently when I had the opportunity to check the film out and see the entire movie for myself. And I gotta be honest, I thought it was okay. I thought it was an adequate, average horror film. At best, I would say this is a time waster for me, for the effects, for some of the gore, for the concepts, for the setting, which I genuinely really enjoyed. I thought the setting of this film was fantastic, with the mansion that's made entirely out of glass, and on top of that, the mansion is built to house 13 spirits to help power some machine, which the house itself is a machine, and the machine is intended to open a portal to hell. I really like that idea. I thought it was a really cool concept. I liked the approach that the film had with the ghosts, which was similar to a monster movie. It was like a whole bunch of monsters getting together and having a bash. But instead of it being monsters like in the Monster Squad, for instance, or something like that, it was ghosts who had these unique looks and appearances to them and different abilities and powers. And I like that. It was a fun take on the haunted house storyline. But the film itself, to me as a whole, like I said, it just never really unlocked its full potential. For me, the biggest reason why has to do with the screenplay, and specifically with how the characters are written and portrayed, and some of the aspects of the climax, as well as the fact that you have these 13 ghosts who have this unique look and appearance to them, and they all have these different abilities. But other than a few ghosts, out of the 13, not all of them really get to do that much. A lot of these ghosts aren't used very well or at all, except for cheap boo scares or just to stand there and do nothing. So that honestly was a letdown for me. Now, the film is directed by a man named... I want to make sure I get his name right, because I remember before I kept getting him confused with somebody else who has the same last name. But it's directed by Steve Beck. Now, Steve Beck is a effects guy. He worked on films like The Abyss, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He's a guy who is more known for his work when it comes to working with visual and practical effects. And when it comes to sequences in this film that deal with visual or practical effects, that is where this film is at its strongest. And it makes sense. He knows how to shoot those sequences and do those scenes well. But when it comes to anything else, you can tell that this is a guy that is really out of his comfort zone and doesn't even really have the required skill set to really add a good amount of mood or atmosphere to these scenes, or really elevate the film in any other capacity other than shooting effect scenes with experience and with a little bit of flair that comes with somebody who's had so many years of experience shooting effects. I honestly would have liked to have seen a more established horror director take the reins on this film. I definitely feel it would have improved the film in terms of how flat and kind of cheap it looks at times. I definitely feel a more experienced director would have made those sequences look a little bit better. I also feel that a more experienced director would also get more out of the cast and might actually get involved and change some of the story aspects. I mean, William Malone did that for a lot of the films that he was responsible for. And William Malone was already an established director. He'd already done films like Creature or Scared to Death before he got the opportunity to direct House on Haunted Hill. Steve Beck is not one of those directors. And he hasn't really done a whole lot other than Ghost Ship. He had done some commercial work before this, and that was and the effects stuff, and that was really his main claim to fame. And I could see why he didn't really get a whole lot of work after 13 Ghosts and Ghost Ship. He's not really that great of a director. He's not bad, he's not awful, but just like the film itself, he's just adequate. And, you know, when it comes to Hollywood, when it comes to hiring people to do films, you need to be better than adequate. You need to have something about you that makes you rise above the average filmmaker. And I never really saw that with Steve Beck. No offense, no disrespect to the man. He's probably a nice guy, and you know, he had the opportunity to direct this, and I don't blame him for taking it. I mean, why not? Probably something that he always wanted to do. The screenplay by Neil Marshall Stevens and Richard D. Oviedo is absolutely the main culprit when it comes to this movie and its biggest flaw. I feel that other than the overall concept that involves going to this mansion that's made entirely out of glass, that's a machine that is powered by the spirits of these 13 ghosts, and the way that you are able to see the ghosts, which is through these glasses. I really love that idea. I thought it was a really cool concept. Other than those elements, it's a fairly weak script. Even when it comes to the ghosts, they don't really do a whole lot. There's the guy with a bat who swings it around a few times. There's the hammer guy who runs around and bangs his hammer and attacks Matthew Lillard at one point. There's the Juggernaut who does the same. Most of the action occurs with this ghost called the Jackal, which slashes some of the characters. And the biggest gore set piece in this, when a character gets sliced in half lengthwise, is not even something that the ghosts do. It's the sliding glass doors. That's what happens. That's why he gets sliced lengthwise, is because the doors close on him. It just felt like a missed opportunity with these ghosts. Like, you could have really gone all out with the gore and with the, you know, slasher ingenuity with these ghosts. You have 13 different ghosts. Why not go all out with it? And that never really happened. So definitely a little disappointing in that regard. It's still fun to see the designs and the practical effects and the makeup and everything. I definitely feel that they did a really good job with that. But I just wish that they had more to do. And on top of that, one of the biggest blows that this film has to its quality and to its potential is its lack of engaging and likable, memorable characters. Other than Matthew Lillard's character, who is an intriguing character, Dennis Rafkin, who has this ability to sense and feel ghosts around him, and when he touches somebody, he can see their trauma and so on and so forth. Other than that character, and maybe Arthur, the main character played by Tony Shaloub, there are no other characters that are really that engaging or that strong. there was potential in Kalina, played by Embeth Davidtz, but that character is ruined by a completely unnecessary and dumb twist where the film screenwriters decide, hey, you know, this character that you're starting to like, who's kind of a badass, who teams up with the main cast and seems to have a decent amount of chemistry. Yeah, we're gonna make this character a villain, a lackey for Cyrus for no reason. Because hey, we gotta have a shock, we gotta have something to throw the audience, and all it did is just throw the character away. That's really what it did. It throws the character away, and then at the end of the film, she just gets killed anyway in lame fashion when one of the rooms closes in on her, and that's it. That's all that happens with that character. Such a waste of that character, and a waste of a pretty good performance by Embeth Davidtz. Matthew Lillard also, he doesn't make it out alive. He has a noble sacrifice, but still he doesn't make it out alive. Honestly, I think that he should have been the lead. I would have preferred him being the lead. Just have him be the lead. Have something involving Embeth Davidtz' character. Maybe she has some sort of a relationship or had a relationship with him. They end up in the house. Then they have to deal with the shenanigans, try to get out of there alive, stop Cyrus, and so on and so forth. Maybe throw in Tony Shaloub's character. But everyone else didn't even need to be there. Specifically, the kids, Shannon Elizabeth as Kathy, and Alec Roberts as Bobby Kritikos. Especially Bobby. I hated Bobby. I hated this fucking kid. What were the writers thinking? Why did they think that we needed some annoying kid on a Razor scooter in this movie? I don't understand. The logic does not compute. Why the hell was this kid in this film? He was cannon fodder. He was annoying. He was obnoxious. He just got in the way. He was hanging around way too long too. The film is only like 90-something minutes, but he's a part of the film for at least half of it, and he just weakens the film as a result. I don't care. I don't care what happens to the kid, because I don't like the kid. The film thinks that just because it's a kid, I'm gonna care. I'm sorry, you gotta try harder than that. You gotta give the kid a likable personality. You gotta give the kid something to do, something about him that makes me actually give a shit what happens to him. And instead, the screenplay does the opposite and makes him some shitty comic relief, or just makes him annoying. And it was just one of those things where I honestly wish the film got some balls and killed him off. Then I wouldn't have to be exposed to this kid's shitty acting and this shitty character. And the film gets infinitely better when he's taken off screen, because he gets kidnapped or something like that, and he's gone, and I'm like, all right, okay, good. Took you long enough, movie. Shannon Elizabeth is given a nothing role as Kathy. She's just there to look pretty, be spooked out a little bit at a couple points, get attacked by the jackal, and then disappear for most of the second half of the film. And then you have this character that... another example of poor character development and writing, with this nanny character, Maggie, played by Rah Digga. I didn't dig this character. I didn't dig her performance. This character came across as, she came across as a character in a scary movie. In a scary movie. The parody film series Scary Movie. This character was written and portrayed as if she was a part of that franchise. And it works in Scary Movie, but in this, it didn't work for me. I didn't dig it at all. I honestly thought the character was kind of a bitch, especially early on when you're introduced to her. She's definitely a bad influence on the kids. I don't understand why they thought this character was strong enough to have so much running time, to have so many scenes, especially over someone like Kalina, played by Embeth Davidtz. And also, isn't it kind of weird? Isn't it kind of strange that they have a white family with a black nanny who's going around doing their dirty work and kind of just being essentially kind of a slave, a housemaid. I'm just saying, it's just I don't know. It was a very kind of a weird dynamic at first, and it didn't help either that I didn't really like the character. Um, F. Murray Abraham is a capable actor, and he does a good job in a lot of different films, but this is a very nothing role for him as Cyrus. He chews the scenery every chance he has to the point where it's honestly kind of laughable. And I don't blame him for trying to have some fun. I mean, hey, cool. It's better than just sleepwalking through the role, but at the same time, the character leaves no impression. He leaves no lasting impression whatsoever. And it's confusing. It's like, okay, I thought he died in the beginning, but then it's a twist that he's still alive. But how did that happen? Because in the beginning, in the junkyard, he gets his throat slashed. So what? Was that just an effect? It was all fake? How did he do that then? None of that is ever explained. And then on top of that, of course, you have the dumb twist at the end with the character of Kalina, where she was actually working for Cyrus this whole time. And it's just a really lame twist. And Tony Shaloub, he ultimately becomes the hero. He's a guy who doesn't believe in ghosts, but ultimately he turns around and he saves his family at the end, and he stops the machine from opening the portal to hell, and stops Cyrus. And it was a nice change of pace to see Tony Shalhoub in this kind of role. But that being said, I just would have liked to see Matthew Lillard more because I like the character more, and I don't know. Tony Shalhoub was fine, but I just wanted to see more of Matthew Lillard. The cast, other than Matthew Lillard and Tony Shalhoub and parts of the performance by Embeth Davidtz, is pretty weak and forgettable. Honestly, one of the ghosts was more memorable to me than a majority of the supporting cast. The actress who played the angry princess, Shauna Lawyer. The score by John Frizzell, really nothing to write home about, let alone anything of merit. The editing in this film is absolutely awful. I hated the editing in this, especially the sound mix and how the sound is edited. It's irritating. It's so turned up to 11 that it's just obnoxious and really hard to watch. It's something I could deal with for like 4 to 5 minutes in a stylish music video, but for a feature film, it gets old really fast. And I know what they were trying to go for. They were trying to deliberately disorientate the audience, but it takes you out of the film. It's not as enjoyable or as fun of a movie to watch because of these jarring edits. And, I mean, the cinematography by Gail Tattersall, when it comes to shooting the location, the setting of the film in the mansion, quite well done. When it comes to anything else, it's there. Most of the film, though, just takes place within the mansion made out of glass, so it's not like there was really a whole lot of opportunities for cinematography or really playing around with the lighting. I definitely want to give all the credit that I possibly can to the production and art designers for this movie. They really went all out. I love the design and the look of the mansion, made entirely out of glass. The set was entirely glass. It was real glass. They didn't mess around. They didn't cheap out. They went for it, and it was a very unique looking set, and that alone made the film worth watching, just to see that set. And on top of that, to see the ghosts and the effects and so on and so forth. I just wish that the characters were stronger. Overall, I wish that there was more for the ghosts to do. I wish that there was more gore, because other than that one scene with the guy getting sliced lengthwise by the doors, there's just a bit of blood, but that's really about it. The comeuppance and the final denouement, so to speak, for Cyrus, I felt was a little. I'm trying to think of the right word. It was definitely not something that stuck with me, and it wasn't as crowd pleasing as it could have been. And it's just one of those movies where there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of interesting concepts and ideas, but they're not fully fleshed out. And like I said, I think the best way to sum it up, since the film focuses on this machine that the house is, and there's a lot of different doors and different machinations going on, it never really unlocked its full potential. But I still thought it was a somewhat enjoyable film. I've seen a lot worse. I've seen much worse remakes. I don't think it's quite as bad as some of the critics make it out to be. But at the same time, I can't lie and say I thought 13 Ghosts was a terrific film by any means. It's just one of those movies where I like some of the effects. I like the concept. I liked the makeup on the ghosts and so on and so forth. But it just lacked in the character department. And it really didn't go as all out as I honestly hoped it would. But that's just my personal opinion on the film. I hope you enjoyed the review. And as always, I will see you later. See ya.